Hey everybody, this is Jared from Gertrude, and in this video I'm going to show you every step of getting set up with Gertrude starting from absolute zero, and also give you kind of a tour of all the main features. So if you're looking for an exhaustive kind of walkthrough, you're in the right place. And if you're signing up for Gertrude, I encourage you to just kind of follow along, pause the video, and kind of do all these steps. And if you do, you will kind of have a pretty good mastery of all the parts of Gertrude after the end of this video. First thing I want to do is kind of explain what you're seeing on my screen here. This entire video, I'll have my screen split in two parts, and that's because to understand how Gertrude works, you need to understand that there are two roles, the role of the parent and the role of the child. And I'll pause briefly here to say that we almost exclusively use the language of parent and child, but that's not because Gertrude only works for parents protecting kids. It also works great for adults in relationships of accountability. If that's your situation, then just every time we talk about parent and child, just use it as a metaphor. The parent obviously being the one who is doing the protecting, and the child is the individual being protected. But that being said, because there's always these two roles, I've chosen to split my screen in half. And on the left side, where you see the iPhone, this represents the parent role, what they have to do, kind of setting up and administering and protecting their kids. And I've got it shown in an iPhone, but this could be any device that has access to the internet and a browser. So this could be your iPhone, your Android, any kind of smartphone, your computer. Basically, as long as you can run a web browser, wherever you are with a web browser, you can do what you need as a parent protecting a child in Gertrude. Lots of our parents do most of this from their phone, so I'm going to show it over on the left side in this simulated iPhone. And the right side is the desktop of a Mac computer, and that's because right now Gertrude works only for Mac computers in terms of protecting children. It doesn't work on Windows or other types of devices. So the child being protected is always going to be running a Mac computer. So the right side of my screen is the computer of the child that you're protecting. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. The very first step you need to take is to create a Gertrude account, which is free for the first 60 days. You don't need to put a credit card in. We just need to come here and click sign up. Then put in your email address and a password. And you need to go over to your email one time and click the verification link. Because this is a simulated iPhone, I'm going to just paste in that link. And once you've verified your email address, it's going to bring you into the dashboard of the Gertrude for Parents website. And the first thing it's going to do is help you realize that you basically can't do anything with Gertrude until you at least add your first child. So I'm going to click this button right here. If you want, we have a short video you can watch, but you're already watching the longer video. So if you just click to add a child, you can put the name in. I'm going to use the fictitious child name of Franny and click save. And just click save. And once we do that, Gertrude is going to show us that we have 3 more steps to do. And this is really the most complicated part of the entire setup, is that we have to make a connection between the parent's website where you create and name this child and the actual Mac computer that's going to have the Gertrude Mac app running and going to be receiving its instructions from the parent. And this takes a couple steps, but I hope you'll realize by watching me do this that it takes 2 or 3 minutes, and it's really not that complicated. And it only has to be done once. So we'll walk through these 3 steps together. It's telling us step 1 that we need to go to the computer Franny uses and download the Gertrude Mac app. So that's this right side computer. I'm going to pull up the Safari web browser. Any web browser would do. And I'm going to go to gertrude.app/download. And I am going to click to download the app. Once it is there, we'll just see where it got downloaded to and double click it. This is just like installing any other Mac app if you've done this before. It's going to prompt us to drag this icon into our applications folder. And I'm going to authenticate that I'm allowed to do that. And once that's done, I'll close this out. If you go to your applications directory, you should see Gertrude available as one of the options. So I'm going to double click that. And it pops up a little warning saying you downloaded this from the internet. And we say, I know, go ahead and open it. And immediately Gertrude is going to give you this little notification that says, hey, please allow alerts from Gertrude, and go ahead and click allow. We're going to dial this in just a moment, but Gertrude does need to sometimes send notifications, and we'll talk more about that, and I'll show you examples. With that done, you have Gertrude running. However, you may not see anything, like no window popped up like you might be expecting, and that's because Gertrude is a utility that mostly runs in the background, kind of keeping your child safe, and they interact with the other apps that they need to use, and it kind of tucks out of the way until they need to do something with it. And so for that reason, instead of having a big window that's always visible, it just runs in the background and adds this little icon right here in the menu bar. So that's where we're going to be going to interact with Gertrude from now on. But if we click this right now, you'll see that it's telling us, okay, we need to connect to a child. And that is what step 2 over in the parents website is saying. It says, back here in the parent site, get a one-time connection code by clicking the button below. So if I click that, it's going to give me a 6-digit code. And then I go back to Franny's computer, click to connect. And if I enter that code and click submit, then you'll see we have successfully made this connection. Back in the parents website, if you were to refresh this page now, you'll see that you get a whole bunch more options, and you can see that Franny has a computer, and this little green light shows that she's currently online. There's some more options here that we'll cover most of them in the course of this video, but I want to quick do something, and that is I'm going to enable both of these features, keylogging and screenshots. We'll talk more about this a little bit later in the video, but these are some tools that are going to make it so that we have a greater level of accountability and transparency and oversight of our child, and we're going to get access to seeing what they're doing online and also what they're typing. So I'm just going to enable these so that I can demonstrate these features. And because we're doing a video, I'm going to turn this down to, let's say, every 25 seconds we'll take a screenshot, and then I'm going to save. So over here back on the computer that your child is using, you actually see that this little accessibility request came through from the operating system, and that happened immediately the moment that I saved the child, and that's because we sent the information that we are going to be doing monitoring, and Gertrude has to one-time request your permission to do this monitoring. So I'll show you how that works in just a moment. Go ahead and click continue here, and we'll come back to this internet filter area. But if you click this Administrate button, this is the only button in Gertrude that is only for parents. So if you click it, you actually have to put in your username and password. And once you've done that, Gertrude is going to kind of give you what we call the health check. And this is a screen where it kind of like kicks its own tires and tells you if anything doesn't seem right. And so this is a good place to just kind of go and take care of all the issues. The ones that are really important are red, and you'll see that because I've enabled screenshot monitoring and keylogging, both of these are saying, hey, you have to give permission, and that's because Apple doesn't want apps just taking screenshots without your permission or recording your keystrokes, because that can be an invasion of privacy. And so you have to explicitly grant the app permission. And this health check screen is kind of walking you through that. So I encourage you, even if you're not sure you're going to do monitoring with your own child, as you're working through this tutorial, just turn this on, because you can always turn these features off in the parents admin later, or in the parents website later. But it'll just be easy to kind of follow me and get these permissions sorted out right now while we're getting everything set up. So if I click this fix permission for screen recording, it's going to take me over to this security and privacy tab. And I wish this were a little bit more intuitive, but if you scroll down, you'll see that screen recording is highlighted. And then what we have to do is we have to put our admin authentication in, and then we can add Gertrude and add it to this list. It is going to say, hey, you need to quit and reopen this app. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, which means now I need to open up a Finder window, go back to Applications, and boot Gertrude again. But once I've done that, there's the icon again. If I go to Administrate, then we should see that screen recording permission has been granted. So that's good. We got one red mark left. Let's go ahead and click that. This is similar. It's going to highlight this accessibility area. We just need to now check that Gertrude has this permission. And if I close this out and recheck, we should see that we're green in both those categories. Let's fix this one down here. The notification setting is giving us a warning, and that's because we highly recommend that you have notifications set to alert. That just makes them so they're almost impossible to miss for the child, and that's because we try not to spam your child with notifications. The few notifications we do send are usually really important, and your child doesn't want to miss them. You'll see that in the course of this video. So if you click this one, Fix Setting, all you have to do is on the left side, pick the Gertrude app and switch it over to alerts. Let me pause for a moment and just say that depending on what version of macOS, whether it's Ventura or Sonoma or Big Sur you're running, we support a whole bunch of operating systems. Your system preferences might look different from this. In fact, in newer versions, it's called System Settings and looks a lot different. But the basics are the same. So if yours looks just a little different, just kind of hunt around. You should be able to find the corresponding buttons to click from what I'm showing you here on my screen. So now that I've set this to alerts, I'm going to close this out and I'm going to recheck one more time. And we're all green except for it's telling us that the filter has not been installed. I'm going to quick dismiss this so that these are out of our way. This last one is just telling us that the internet filter hasn't been installed yet. The Gertrude app, one of its core features is that it blocks the entire internet and then only permits access to the parts of the internet that you think are safe and that your child needs. And in order to do this, it has what's called a system extension that runs a filter on the internet. But this has to also be installed one time. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You can do it by clicking right here, but there's another way you can do that. So I'll just actually dismiss this Administrate window and show you that in the main drop down, it's letting us know that the internet filter is also off, and we can click this Turn On button. This is the final piece that requires a little bit of you granting permission, because filtering the internet is a pretty powerful thing. The Gertrude app actually has the ability to see every single network request that any app on your whole computer makes. And Apple wants to basically have you confirm that you understand that that's what's happening and that you want that to happen. Because if they didn't do that, you might be able to install some software from the internet that does something slimy and is trying to filter your internet behind the scenes and do something bad. But Gertrude's just doing this for the safety of your kid and you want it. So you'll have to just do a couple things to allow Apple to install the system extension and the filter for you. And I'll show you those steps right here. If you click Turn On, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get this system extension blocked warning. And this is a little confusing because it's making it look like you should really click OK. But if you click OK, then that's you saying, OK, don't let Gertrude load. Instead, we want to go and give permission. So I'm going to click the gray button that says Open Security Preferences. And if you look closely, down here it says system software from the application Gertrude was blocked from loading. And that's what we need to fix. I can't click Allow right now, but if I authenticate, then I can. And if I click allow, then we get one more screen saying, hey, Gertrude is now basically asking to filter network content. And once again, don't click the blue one. You want to say, yes, allow. That's why I installed Gertrude. So click allow, and then close this out. If we look at Gertrude now, you'll see that the internet filter is running. And if we were to check the Administrate screen one more time, it no longer says that the filter is not installed. Now it's just saying there are no keys loaded, which I'm going to explain in just a moment. And this last yellow one will turn to green in just a few minutes. The next thing I want to do is explain how the filter works and kind of take it for a spin. And to do that, let me fire up Safari again. And I'm going to just try to go to a website. Like, let's try Yahoo. And you'll see it's saying Safari can't open that. Well, let's try a different website. Maybe Bing will open. Nope. Maybe Wikipedia. And none of these at all are opening. And if you were here all day trying websites, you'll notice that literally 0 websites will load. And it's important for you to understand that this is by design. This is how Gertrude works by default. In fact, it's the only way Gertrude works. Gertrude blocks everything in the entire internet and lets you allow the parts that you think are safe. And I want to just talk about this for a brief moment because it's really important that you understand why we do this. A lot of other parental controls apps on the market will block categories of the internet. They'll tell you something like, hey, do you want to block the adult websites or the gambling websites? And that sounds really simple and really easy. And it's a great idea in theory, except you have to think for a moment about the fact that for that to work, somebody would have to categorize every single website on the entire internet so that all the adult websites were correctly blocked by these apps. And this is just literally impossible to do. There are over 2 billion websites, experts estimate, on the internet. In fact, it's estimated that 250,000 new websites are created every day. So unless there's somebody checking every single one of those websites and then rechecking them periodically and making sure that the adult websites are correctly categorized and the gambling ones, etc., then unless that's happening, this approach of blocking the bad stuff just doesn't work. And so it's because of that you need to take the opposite approach, which is basically reverse that, flip it on its head and say every website is guilty until proven innocent. And so that's how Gertrude does it, is we block everything and we let you safe list the parts of the internet that you want your kid to have access to. And this gives you the most comprehensive internet safety of any tool on the market, which is fabulous. However, it also means you have to do a little bit of work to get the parts of the internet unblocked that you need your child to have access to. Because while this computer right now, which can't open a single website, is very, very safe, it's not very practical. So we need to fix that. And to do that, I am going to show you the 3 common ways to unblock parts of the internet. Before I do that, let me kind of explain to you the metaphor we use. In Gertrude, the entire internet is blocked down, or you can think of it as like being locked up. And so you have to open up little parts of the locked internet. And because that's kind of the approach Gertrude takes, we call the items you create to unblock or unlock the internet, we call those keys. So you can think of it as like a little key that unlocks a part of the internet. And because websites and classes and things for school tend to clump into groups, we organize keys into keychains. And so we have this concept throughout Gertrude of keychains that are like little bundles of keys which unlock parts of the internet. And you're going to hear me kind of using those terms in the next few minutes, and hopefully the analogy makes sense. And as soon as you're kind of used to it, it'll become second nature. So the first way to give your child access to part of the internet is with what we call a public keychain. And this is basically a keychain that we have already created for you. And let me show you how this works. A good example would be with the educational website Khan Academy. which is going to be blocked. This is a commonly used website, and so because of that, you don't need to create keys to get this website working. We already have a public keychain for you. So I'm going to come over and put on my parent hat again, and I'm over here editing Franny, and there's this button down here to add a keychain. So we're going to add a keychain, and it's telling us up top that we don't have any personal keychains, and that's true. We haven't created one. We'll do that in a moment. But even though we don't have any of our own keychains, there's this whole list of public keychains, and if you scroll down, then you can see that here's Khan Academy. I'm going to click Add, and then I am going to save the child. Once I've done that, if I come back to my child's computer and refresh this page, you'll notice that it loads perfectly right away. And it's worth noting that Franny, the child, didn't have to do anything. That this updated rule that happened over here from my iPhone was immediately transmitted and communicated to her phone. And that's one of the things we always try to do. We have this concept that parents should be able to administrate and control their kids' computers from wherever they are, and if at all possible, we're always going to be just immediately sending the most up-to-date rules, and their computers will just kind of react and update and always be up-to-date with your most recent decisions you've made. So that's a good example of kind of how that works. So anyway, you can see how easy that was. This whole website will work for your child now just because they have this Khan Academy public keychain. So that's one really good way, an easy way to get started. The second way to unblock part of the internet is to manually create a key yourself. This is actually probably the least common way that our parents create keys, but it's worth kind of showing because sometimes you need to do it, and it also kind of helps you helps me demonstrate the concept of creating a personal keychain. So let's do that. I'm going to go up to the main menu, and there's an option here for keychains, and it's telling us that we have no keychains yet, and we're going to click to create one, and all you need to do is give it a name. Now, you can organize your keychains however you like. These could be for a specific website like we just did with Khan Academy, or it could be a class that your child is in, which might unlock multiple websites. Or you might find that for you, just having a single keychain for your child makes a lot of sense. Maybe a different keychain for each child. There's no rules about this, just kind of however it makes sense to you. Go ahead and stick with that. And you can always rearrange this later. For now, I'm just going to make a keychain that's called Franny's Keys. This is going to hold all of her keys for the sake of this video. And it is telling us that now we have no keys. And so we're going to click to create a key. And on this screen, I have this form that allows me to specify what part of the internet I want to allow. And there's a bunch of options here. I'm not going to exhaustively explain all of the options, but I'll just kind of mention a few of them. First, there's two main key types. The most common one is a website key where you're just granting access to a specific website. But it's worth exploring and just kind of knowing that we can also create what's called an app key. A good example of this might be the Zoom application. Some kids need to do online classes that are run through Zoom. And so Zoom is not a browser. It's not Safari or Firefox. It's a whole different app. And with Gertrude, you can specifically allow another app on the system to have access to the internet. And that's something that's pretty useful. But for now, we're just going to create a website key. That's the most common and most normal thing to do. So I'll show you that. We're going to select that it's a website key, and then we need to put the address in that we want to unlock. And so for this, we are going to unlock the website rosettastone.com. And just to kind of show you over here on Franny's computer, if I go to rosettastone.com, of course it's blocked, but if we come over here and put this website in here manually, then I can click next, and it gives me some other options, whether the key should be only for web browsers, which is the most common, but you can also make it so that all apps get access to this website. I'm just going to click next for now. You can make expirations if your child only needs something for a few days or a few weeks. You can make this expire, and you can add a comment to yourself. But I am going to kind of leave the defaults for now, and if I click create key, then my first keychain is ready to go. There is, however, one more step. You'll notice if I come over here, I still can't access Rosetta Stone, and that's because we haven't actually given Franny this keychain. Your kids don't automatically get all the keychains you create, and that's because you might have multiple kids you're protecting, and you might want one child to have access to certain sites that another child shouldn't have access. So that's another reason for this concept of grouping keys into keychains. It allows you to selectively connect them with the children that you're protecting. So that just means we have to go over to our children, and I'm going to edit Franny, and I'm going to scroll down and add a keychain. And now that section saying I have no personal keychains is gone, and I'm actually able to select Franny's keys. So if I select that and scroll down, click add, and I'm just going to save the fact that I have given her that keychain. If I come over here and refresh, now you'll see that Rosetta Stone is working. So that might look a little bit time consuming or complicated, and that's because it, does have a few extra steps, but like I said, you kind of rarely need to do that, but it's useful to know how to do it, and it'll explain and give you a little bit more context for the final way I'm going to show you, which is unlocking part of the internet through what we call an unlock request. So the way this works is kind of a cooperation between the child and the parent, and I'll show you both parts of it. Let's say, for an example, that our child wants to go to howtotype.com, and they're trying to get their homework done, and they need to get to this website, but they're blocked out of it. And what we wanted to do is give your child the ability to request to have something unblocked. And the way they do that is by coming up to the Gertrude icon over here. And if they're finding that they're locked out of something that they need access to, they can click to view the network requests. And this window that pops up is going to show everything that Gertrude's blocking. Right now, it's not blocking anything, but if I come back here and retry this, I'm just going to refresh this, you'll see that how to type was just recorded as having been blocked by Gertrude. And this is great. Your child can now see, yep, sure enough, that's the website I was trying to go to, and they can click this, and then they can send an unlock request. And before I actually do that, I want to pause and do one more step over in the parent's website, because when they send this unlock request, what we need to do is send you, the parent, a notification. But we can't do that until you've actually set up and kind of configured your notifications. We don't know, who to reach out to. So that just takes a moment to set up. In fact, if I go back to the Gertrude parents website and just go right to the home dashboard, you'll see that we kind of detect this situation where you don't have any notifications, and usually you want to create one. So we kind of prompt you to create the notification. You can click this, a button, it'll take you into your settings screen, or you can also go in the sidebar over here and just choose settings. When you do that, if you scroll down, you'll see that we have a list of notification methods, and by default, you always have at least the verified email you used when you signed up is a method by which we can contact you because we know that's your email address. In fact, you've already verified that you own that. But this is also a place where you can create other methods for us to get a hold of you. And we currently have 3 different methods of sending you a notification. One is by email. The next is sending you a text message. And third, we can also send you a Slack if you use Slack. So for the sake of this video, I am going to set up to get a text message. And to do that, I'm going to click add and then choose text. I need to type in my phone number here. And because you need to one-time prove that this is your phone number and that you want to receive notifications, we send you a verification code. And you can hear that I just got a text, but because this iPhone is just a simulator, I can't show you that text. I will just go ahead and type the number in. And once you successfully verify that code, you'll see that you have a new notification method. And you can do the same configuring other email addresses or Slack channels you want to get notified. You can have different phone numbers for different events, however you like. But creating a notification method is only half of what you need to do. Once you've done that, you want to come down here and actually create a notification. And currently we have 2 different events that can trigger these notifications, and so you can configure them both independently. I'm going to add one. You choose one of your verified methods. I'm going to use that text one that I just created. And then these are the 2 events. One is an unlock request. That's kind of what I started showing you over on the right. So I'm going to create a notification for an unlock request. And there is also another type of event, which I'll go ahead and set up while we're here, because I'll show you this later, for a filter suspension request. And so now I've got these both set to send me a text message whenever either of these events occur. And having done that, we can head back to the dashboard or anywhere else, and I can finish showing you how this unlock request workflow works. So back on Franny's computer, you can see that actually since I've been talking, the Apple Stocks widget, which is kind of running in the background, has also tried to go hit the internet, and Gertrude is being very diligent and blocking all of that. But it kind of shows you that sometimes this area can get a little noisy, especially if you have a lot of apps open. And so it's worth kind of using this opportunity to point out that if you're ever having trouble finding out which blocked request is the one that's giving you trouble, then a couple of tricks you can use are you can first of all quit as many other apps as possible. And then you can also use this filter area. Like I'm only interested in things coming from the Safari browser. So if I just type Safari here, it'll narrow it down back to this blocked how to type request. So now that we've kind of paused time for a moment and set up an admin notification, we can finish putting our Franny hat back on and submitting this unlock request. Once I've selected it, by clicking it, I've got this button that says send unlock request, and I can optionally add an explanation. She could say something like, I need it for class. And then when she clicks unlock request, it gets sent off, and then a notification gets triggered to you. And that little ding was the sound of my phone getting a text message. Again, because this is a simulated iPhone, I need to just paste in the link. But if this were your phone, you could just go to your text and click the link, and you'd be brought straight back into the Gertrude Parents website. And it would look just like this. When it loads up, you'll see that it's showing that we got this unlock request from Franny a few seconds ago, and here's her comment, I need it for class, and it's showing us what website she was trying to access. And we have the option, if this doesn't look safe or we don't want her to be there, we can click deny. Otherwise, if it looks good, we can go ahead and click accept. And this is where we need a keychain. You see, every key has to be associated with some keychain. And so if you don't have a personal keychain created, this screen would actually kind of show you, hey, you can't actually do this until you've set up your own keychain, and it would kind of guide you through doing that. But we already created the Franny's keychain, so I'm going to click and say, yes, this is the one I want to use. And then you'll see that basically what Gertrude has done is it has used the information from the blocked request to pre-fill that whole sort of complicated form I was showing you a minute ago. And all we have to do is just kind of eyeball it and review that it looks right. And so I'm going to say, okay, a website key, unlocking howtotype.com for all web browsers with no expiration. That seems good to me. And if I click submit, then if you noticed over on the right side of my screen, Franny got a notification saying her unlock request was accepted. And this is probably the first example of why the notifications in Gertrude need to be turned on and should be set to alert, because we don't want our child to miss the fact, this could be several minutes later, maybe an hour or two later. If I'm in the middle of a meeting, I may not be able to respond to this text message. And so it's important that your child gets a notification letting them know that, yes, now they can access this. So if I refresh this page now that the unlock request has been granted, you'll see that this page is working great. So that's an unlock request, and it's a really common way for stuff to get unlocked. It's worth you taking just a couple minutes to show your child how to kind of go through that process. To first isolate what's being blocked. If I were to try something else and go to apple.com, you can see there it is, Apple, and show them how to select which ones they think are being blocked and send you an unlock request. And you kind of get in a groove of parent and child, and you can pretty quickly get things unlocked from wherever you are. So that's how unlock requests work. At this point, it would be a good time for me to go back and show you a little bit more about that monitoring feature, because now we've been using Franny's computer for a few minutes while we had those monitoring features turned on. So if we're back in the parent's website, if we go to the dashboard, you may have already seen this in the background, but we have this new widget that appeared of recent screenshots. And this is showing us that 44 seconds ago, this is a screenshot that was recorded from Franny's computer. And there's also this widget up here that says activity that shows us that we have 44 unreviewed items. We can click this directly, and there's another way to go see these items too that I'll quick mention, which is also if you just go to the Children tab, Franny now has this purple activity button. If we click that, it'll show us the same list of 45 items that need to be reviewed. And this is just, as you can see, a stream of all these screenshots that were taken about every 25 seconds. And so you can see all the stuff that I was doing while making this video, including what they typed. Now, I didn't type very much while I was creating this, but you can see that when they do type something, that comes through, and we show you what time and what application they were using. And you can review this at any time from your own computer or phone, and each one of these items has a little button you can click to approve, which basically just deletes it. But most of our parents just kind of scroll through big chunks of these at once, and at the bottom of the screen, it gives you the option to approve them all at once. And if you do that, then you're all caught up reviewing Franny's activity. And all this activity will kind of hang around in our system for up to 2 weeks. So you don't have to do this every day or every couple days. You can kind of, whenever it's convenient, come and check out what Franny's been up to. This monitoring feature is super powerful, and we do want to mention that it's not secretive or spying. We actually are always communicating to your child if we are recording their screen or recording their screenshots. I'll show you may have noticed this, but in the drop down on the lower left side here, because Franny's keystrokes and screen are being monitored, we show that in this really big square down here, because again, we don't want to do this in a secretive way. We don't think of this as spying. Rather, we want to transparently communicate to your child that their screen is being observed and that their activity on their computer is not private and it's not secret, and that you have the ability and in fact are going to be reviewing it. And when they know this, this adds a whole nother layer of additional safety on top of the internet filtering, because not only are you blocking the entire internet, except for the parts that you know are safe, but also you can see what's happening on your kid's computer, what they're looking at, and they know that you can see it. And the combination of these just makes, we think, Gertrude the safest parental controls app on the market. And it also allows this next feature I want to show you, which is the ability to suspend the filter. Now, there's this button right over here in the upper right that says Suspend Filter. And this is kind of like what it sounds. If your child clicks this, they can request to have the filter suspended. And you might be thinking, what in the world? Why? How can that be safe? And why would you ever want to do that? Well, because of the fact that Gertrude blocks everything on the internet, there are times when your child has to do a little burst of unusual internet activity. Maybe they need to go to a website just for a few minutes that you don't actually want to unlock for them, or maybe they're on an online call with their teacher and need to go click on some links that their teacher is going to send them to, and you don't know what those are, and you don't have the ability to create all these keys for them in advance. There's a lot of scenarios like this where you wish just for a couple minutes you could kind of turn Gertrude's filter off. And that's exactly what this is. You can, for a very short period of time or longer if you want, you can actually disable the filter. And what makes this safe is that if you have your monitoring turned on, while the filter is disabled or temporarily suspended, the monitoring keeps happening. So you still get to see what they're doing and what they're typing. They know that you still are seeing what they're doing while the filter's turned off. So it provides this great sort of cushion of safety where you can give them a little bit of extra access for a short period of time, but still keep them safe by monitoring their activity. So if your child wants a filter suspension, like I said, they pull up this request suspension screen and choose some duration, let's say 10 minutes. And then if they click next, again, they can add a comment of why they need it. Maybe it's, for a quiz. And then once they click request suspension, you will get a notification. And that's why on the notification screen, there's the sound of my text coming in. On the notification screen, I took a moment to set up that as well. You will get a link that you can click in your text or email or Slack. I'm going to copy that link and paste it in. And this looks a lot like the unlock request, but here it's kind of giving us some details that, hey, the child Franny wants their filter suspended for 10 minutes, and it gives their comment. Now you can change and say, no, I only want to let you turn it off for 5 minutes. You can also say, I'll be watching, or send them some other comment. But if you click grant, then they immediately get another one of these notifications with a message saying that the filter is temporarily disabled. And there's your comment, I'll be watching. If you look at this, it's going to show that, sure enough, the filter is suspended. And that means that I can go to places that I normally can't go to. These are all unblocked. And that's because the filter is suspended. But the monitoring is still working. So if we were to stick around for a few seconds more, and I'll just quick edit the video so that a few seconds pass to show you that we are still getting screenshots. If I refresh this page, you'll see now that we have a screenshot from the time when the filter is suspended. So that is really great for keeping your kids safe and giving them just a brief amount of time. They can also turn this back on if they want by clicking resume. If they don't, then right at the end of 4 minutes, it'll resume automatically. But I'll go ahead and click that. We send them a notification that we're going to actually force quit their browser in 60 seconds. And this is just for maximum safety. Without getting too deep into the weeds, because of how modern browsers work, any websites they were on during their suspension will still partially work after their suspension. So because that's not usually what parents want, the only way that we can sort of make sure they're 100% kicked out of those is by actually terminating their browser. So if you watch in just a few seconds, at the end of 60 seconds, this browser will be quit and they can just restart it. But that's why we give them the warning. But you'll notice that if I try to go anywhere else, I'm locked out of everything because the filter suspension is over at this point. And just then the browser did get terminated. So that is about 90% of everything you need to know about how to use Gertrude. I want to take just a few moments to kind of give you a tour of some of the lesser used items for the sake of completeness. And the first one of those is that if you look at the drop down here, we've already covered the internet filter area, viewing those blocked network requests, requesting to suspend the filter. There is one more feature on here. If you click suspend filter, if you, the parent, are sitting at the computer with your child, let's say you're home with them or you're in the same place, if you don't want to go through the process of sending a notification and then clicking to accept that, the parent can actually immediately click this grant suspension button here if they want to. They just have to put their username and password in to prove that it's the parent, and once they do that, they can immediately start a suspension without sending a notification. So that's just a little convenience for parents who want to suspend the filter without going through the process of getting a notification. We also have this button here. above Administrate, which says refresh rules. This is just a way for you to manually request that Gertrude goes and checks for any updated rules. If you click it, it'll just tell you whether it updated the rules or not. To be honest, this is almost never needed because, as I show you, we try very hard to always send updated information to your child's Gertrude app whenever anything happens in the parent's website. But every once in a while, you may need to click refresh rules, and that just kind of lets you know that for sure you have got the very latest set of protection rules from your parent. The final thing I'll show you is if we go to the Administrate screen, once again, our health check now looks perfect because now we have 16 keys loaded. This was the last thing that was yellow, if you recall, because it was telling us, hey, something seems strange. You didn't have any keys. You can't access anything in the internet, but now that's resolved. So the health check is looking all green, which is what you want to see. There are two other screens you can access. This one with the pointer icon just gives you kind of a few rarely used options. For instance, up here we will show you what version of Gertrude you're running, and you can manually update if there's a newer release. Usually you don't have to do this because Gertrude will prompt you whenever a new release comes out, but if you need to, you can update manually from here. And let's say you have a laptop that Franny was using, but their little brother Jimmy is now going to use it. You could click disconnect to break the association with the Franny child over here, and that just allows you to reconnect to another child. And that's occasionally useful, but not very often. There's also some dangerous actions. There's a button here where you can totally disable and remove the filter. You shouldn't do this unless you're either uninstalling or you're troubleshooting something. And same with quitting the app. If the app is quit, then it stops recording those screenshots and keystrokes. And so that's a dangerous thing to do. Kids can't do this. It's blocked behind a admin password. But in a few rare cases, like if you're done using Gertrude or you're troubleshooting something, sometimes you need these. So that's what these actions are. And that rounds out most of what I wanted to show you. I hope this video has been helpful. And if you have any questions at all or run into any problems, please let us know by going to gertrude.app/contact. Thanks.